What's up, guys? Welcome back. Amazing RC. Brian here. And as most of you already know, I recently picked up a cool new die-cast body for my Senduro 24 here. Well, just like our last die-cast body that we did on our SCX 24, it's extremely heavy. It's not quite as heavy as this one, about half the weight, but still heavy. So, at the very least, I needed to upgrade my shocks. So the first thing I did is I tried to do it myself. And I come up with a really cool shock layout, kind of custom shock deal. And basically what I did was I took this old nitro bottle, this old VXL nitro bottle from my old nitro slash I had for a short period of time. Well, I ended up getting rid of the slash because I'm not very good at nitro, and I'm way up in the mountains, and it's just a whole new demon. But I kept the bottle, and I'm glad I did, because the first thing I tried to do to hold up this big old heavy body is I tried to modify my shocks. And of course, being how we got, this over the front, I decided to do the front shocks first. So I took the shocks off, and the very first thing I noticed is that they're built really weird. Now, I don't remember how the SCX 24 stock shocks were, but I remember I didn't have to take them apart to slip a black zip tie over the spring as a spring retainer. This didn't work out that well. I physically had to take the shock completely apart. And by apart, I mean this teeny tiny little microscopic pin that sits two-piece shock, as far as the body itself. You got the top portion of the body and the bottom portion of the body. And the bottom portion, without, any type of charades here, goes in and out of the body itself, the upper body. Well, it stays inside the upper body via this teeny tiny little microscopic pin. And I was kind of apprehensive at first of sliding this pin out, because I thought, man, what if the factory glued this thing in there? And I'm out of the set of shocks no matter what. And I thought, well, you're not going to know unless you give it a little try. So I basically grabbed my little cutters here and I set them down for a nice solid metal base. I took the shock and I set it on top of there, and I took just a flathead and I set it on the pin and I gave it a little push, and I noticed it had a little bit of a give to it, and just enough poking out the other side that I grabbed my needle nose pliers and pulled it out the rest of the way. I thought, no problem. If anything, I'll glue it back in. So then I had to come up with something as far as a spring retainer. I thought about just using Gorilla Tape, but then with that pin in there, even if that pin is flush to the outside of that shock, it's going to want to rub into the sticky part of the tape, and it's not going to work at all. It's going to kind of get hung up in there. So I went to 1/18 scale, shock retainers. They were too big. I started going through a nitro hose, all your little gas lines and stuff. Man, I thought that they was going to be too tight. The shocks were kind of fragile. So, I looked for probably good 40 minutes until I found this. And then I went and grabbed that top shock body, slid it right into the end of this, and it fit perfect. And I thought, eureka, there's my jam. Got a little mini pipe cutter here. Basically took out a centimeter. It was like 10 millimeters perfect on the head. Went ahead and wrapped off two 1 centimeter pieces, sanded them nice and flush. Then I had to take my Dremel with the little round grinder bit on the end of it, and I had to wallow out the inside, because when you use something like this little pipe, this little fitting cutter here, this little pipe cutter, you're constantly wrenching down on it, and the blade is kind of curving the metal into a point where you're cutting. So it closes the end off a little bit. So I had to grind that out. Took me a good hour, maybe an hour and a half, to get these shocks where they were. And they are pretty. And they work really, really good. A little bit of adjusting, because remember that pin, once I slid that pin back in, even if it's off just a tiny bit, it's rubbing on the inside of that new nice spring retainer that I made. And I'll tell you, as far as looks, they look really good. And they work really good. Gives me a nice bunch of bounce in there. However, spoiler alert, it's not enough. You put the little body on here. Oh, by the way, little piece of carbon fiber here hangs that body up. Perfect. So, got my little piece of carbon fiber in there. Front bumper is on the front bumper. Drop it on, center it out, and just not enough. Maybe if I cut a little bit longer of a spring retainer, it would hold this thing up, but it just isn't enough. So without fiddling with the shocks anymore, I thought, okay, I remember SCX24, same exact thing, twice as heavy Silverado body, twice as heavy Bronco body. I thought, okay, all I did was I went and got a set of aluminum shocks. I think I paid 18, 19 bucks for them, and they came with 3 sets of springs. The mediums are on the inside of the shocks actually attached already. And then you get a light spring and a heavy spring. And I thought, okay, if anything, I'll double the springs up. I got to have enough out of those 3 sets to be able to push this heavy body up. And believe it or not, the heavy set of springs, the gold springs, I mean, if you guys remember my little bouncy Bronco video, I mean, this thing was bouncing all over the place. It just looked so cool. Slowed the video down to half speed, and it really looked good out there. And it ran great. I got it up the driveway of death. Just perfect truck. And I think I'm going to do the exact same thing with this truck here. So I went back online, went back on Amazon, and I found almost the exact same set of shocks I had before. 3 sets of springs, super duper nice. Adjustable shocks, you know, it's got the nice little threaded spring retainer so you can get even more, you know, pressure in the shocks. You can mess with the height of the truck itself. But this time they're Endura. And I'll tell you what, I have been so pleased with anything Endura that I bought so far. The nice beadlock wheels. I got a couple things from them. As a matter of fact, I got some scale accessories, you know, from Endura. I had a nice shovel, metal shovel, gorgeous, just really, really sharp. I had a nice jack stand, you know, that old long jack. That went on I think it was the G-Made sawback that we had. So anyway, I actually sprung for the extra $2, $22, $23 with tax shipped. I'll have it on Monday. This is Saturday evening right now, and I'll have it Monday during the day. So Monday's video, I'm going to have to pop these shocks off, and I will say this. It's not going to be just a throw it on, no problem. Almost never is. They're made for an SCX24. They're actually bolt in, bolt bottom, bolt top and bottom, you know, to the truck itself. Now, the top bolts in on this. However, the bottom is one of those little snap-on deals. And not only does it snap on here, but it also snaps this linkage on as well. So I've got one piece goes into the chassis, the linkage goes on next, and then the shock snaps on and holds everything together. So I'm going to have to figure out a way to get that linkage back on there and then also be able to screw in the shock itself. I'm not worried about it. If I can come up with these shocks, I'm pretty sure I can come up with a way to install the new ones. So that's what we got going on as far as the old die-cast Senduro 24. I mean, man, this thing looks so cool. And of course, I just love, you know, the doors open, the hood opens. And that's another thing. My boy Thad, man, Iowa Budget Bashers, he had got me into 2 things on this rusty paint job, which I'm going to do it cream first. And then as soon as I scratch it, I'm going to go ahead and do it the rust. But I mean, it just looks so good right now. I'm going to leave it the way it is. And very first time we scratch this thing, boom, it's going to get a rusty paint job. But the other thing he said was, bro, that black engine, man, you got to hit it with that old orange paint job with the black air cleaner, make it look all legit. And I don't know if I can, because directly underneath this hood is the engine, the little motor, and the steering servo. And I mean, when I say right underneath the hood, this just about touches it. I mean, it is perfect in there. So I may take this little air cleaner off of here, kind of carve it out of there, maybe paint it black, and then paint the top of my steering servo and the little motor here orange, and kind of have a little faux engine in there. Because I mean, this is so small. When you're you know 3 feet away and looking at it, you're not gonna be able to tell. You're just gonna know it's orange and black in there. It's gonna look really, really cool. But now that I got the extra shocks coming, and I got all that extra push with the old suspension, I can put a bunch more weight on here. I'm going to keep the ESC on here, but I'm going to go ahead and throw a 2S battery on there. I'm pretty sure this can handle a 2S battery. And I think that I'm going to have quite a bit more juice and quite a bit more oomph when I need it. As far as the wheels and tires go, we're going to stay with the stock ones for now, just because, well, I'm going to have to spring for shocks. I don't have another 20, 25 bucks for the rims and tires, but that would probably be the next upgrade. Go with the big old stock and steady, what we all know, the Endura beadlocks. Any one of 50 colors you can get. We all know they're super nice. We all know the tires are great. So, guys, that's where I'm at right now. The old Senduro 24. I mean, look, body sits on there the way it's supposed to. Now, next time you see this, we're going to have 4 Endura shocks. It's going to hold everything up exactly how it's supposed to. Until then, it's Brian, Amazing RC. Get you guys another cool video very, very soon.